Negative equity, let's talk about it. Right now, there is historically high negative equity in the industry as a result of massive inflation during the COVID period, where prices were as high as they've ever been, rates got higher, and as we come out of that, people who bought cars a year, 2, 3 years ago are often in situations with negative equity that we have never seen historically. One of my goals has always been to help educate consumers on how they can deal with negative equity. And one of the most effective ways, and I talk about this very often, is to go into a lease, preferably on a demo, something that can be deeply discounted to help to eat up that negative equity and get you into a shorter term commitment on a car, get to square one after 3 or 4 years and start over. But here's the deal. There is some basic mathematics to leasing that's important to understand. That way, as a shopper, you can help save time and know what you need to accomplish and where you stand before you start talking with the dealership. There are more ways than ever before to get trade-in values on your pre-owned vehicle. One of the easiest is Carvana. Carvana makes it very simple to use their website and get an appraisal done online right from home. When you compare that to what you owe on the vehicle, then you're going to have an idea of what that negative equity spread is. Now, the math that I talk about in my videos that is helpful to keep in mind is that about every $1,000 that you have in negative equity is going to add about $30 a month to a monthly payment on a 3-year lease. The reason that's important is that if you have a payment threshold, something that you're a payment target that you're comfortable with to get out of this negative equity situation, you're going to want to know what that is and where your starting point needs to be before the negative equity is factored in. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, let's say hypothetically you have $10,000 in negative equity. That's going to represent $300 a month that will be added to the monthly payment of the car that you're looking to lease. So assuming that the highest monthly payment that you'd be willing to afford to get out of this negative situation is $1,000. Then that means you have to put yourself in the mindset of a buyer who is shopping for a $700 lease payment as if there was no trade, because you would need that $700 payment under whatever terms it is that you need. So however many miles per year you need and whatever down payment you have, you need to be looking at a car no more than $700 a month before the negative equity gets added back in. So for situations that are even more extreme, let's say we have $20,000 in negative equity. Now we're talking about $600 a month that's going to be added to that monthly payment. So again, if I had a $1,000 maximum payment threshold, I would need a car that leased for $400 a month before that negative equity gets added in. Now here's the kicker, and here's where things get difficult, is that you have loan to value that must be considered. And what loan to value means is that a lender, bank, financial institution, whatever you want to call them, is only going to loan so much money for whatever thing it is that you're going to buy. For example, if this pen costs $1 and I ask a bank for a $10 loan to buy it, they're going to say no. Not because I wouldn't be able to repay the $10 loan, but because they value this pen too low compared to the amount of money that I'm asking for. So you need to think of cars in that same way, which is that if I am asking for a $60,000 loan on a vehicle that is only valued at $40,000, even if I have the ability to repay it, the bank will not do the deal because it's too risky for them. So when you have this massive negative equity, you really only have 2 options to help get within loan-to-value parameters of a lender. Option number 1 is a massive down payment. And typically, when people find themselves in massive negative equity situations, that's not going to be possible. So option number 2 is that the vehicle that you're buying must be new and preferably a demo, but it needs to be deeply discounted. The good news about new cars is that lenders value them based off of the invoice, and the gap between an invoice and an MSRP is not very big. But even if the car is maybe moving slowly or has massive incentives or rebates that are on it from the manufacturer, that vehicle does not get penalized by the lender for having those incentives and rebates. So for example, if you're looking at an EV that has all kinds of lease credits and huge discounts that amount to approximately what your negative equity is or more, then the bank will look at that loan very favorably. So for example, if you had $20,000 in negative equity, but you're looking at a new car that could be discounted $20,000, then really in the eyes of the lender, it's as if you're buying a car for MSRP with no trade. The car would meet loan to value, and it makes it much easier to get the deal approved. So these are the two things that you must keep in mind. One, what is the target payment that I need to get to? And then based on my negative equity, how much, what is the target lease payment that I need to be looking at as if I had no trade? And two, depending on the negative equity that I have, how much of a discounted car do I need to buy so that I can get within the parameters that a bank would even consider the deal? These are two very important things. They will save you time and frustration. I'm here to help. We've helped a lot of people in these situations, but there's only so much that a dealership can do when there's a payment consideration and when there's loan to value considerations. So make sure that you keep these things in mind, do some quick math, figure out how much negative equity do I have, what is that going to impact my monthly payment by, what can I comfortably afford, and therefore how do I get within those loan to value parameters. One last thing, generally speaking, 120% loan to value is typically the max that any lender would be willing to consider. And what that means is that whatever the value of the asset is in the eyes of the bank, they will loan an additional 20% on top of that number. So for example, if you looked at a vehicle valued at $50,000, 20% of $50,000 is $10,000, so the bank would likely lend up to $60,000 on that loan. Hopefully you found this information helpful. My name is Doug with BenzsandBowties. If you like content like this, please give me a follow or please subscribe. I appreciate it. Educate consumers and car buyers so that they can make great decisions or decisions that will be better for them moving forward on their next vehicle purchase.